Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu salam, rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Sarah Khalid. I'd like to welcome to our program on getting closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Lord and our Creator and Sustainer here at Sharjah Broadcasting Authority. And it is by Allah's mercy and grace that we have this opportunity, and we thank Him for this. So I just want to read this one hadith quickly. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is reported that Ibn Umar, with the annal, reported that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, O Muhajirin, there are 5 things with which you will be tested, and I seek refuge with Allah that you will live to see them. Immorality never appears among a nation to such an extent that they commit it openly, that but plagues and diseases that were never known among the predecessors will spread among them. Immorality brings plagues and diseases that were not seen before. They do not cheat in weights and measures, but they will be stricken with famine. They do not cheat in weights and measures, that they will not experience famine. Severe calamity and the oppression of their rulers. They do not withhold the zakat of their wealth, but rain will be withheld from the sky. And were it not for the animals, no rain would fall on them. So we're talking about famine and drought from disobeying the commandments of Allah. They do not withhold the zakat, subhanAllah. And Allah would not send the rain, even send the rain if it was not for the animals. They do not break their covenant with Allah and His Prophet ﷺ, but Allah will enable their enemies to overpower them and take some of what is in their hands. This is obeying the covenant. The covenant Muslims have taken the covenant with Allah. We say we believe in Allah. We say we believe in the Prophet ﷺ. So next thing, the covenant is to what? To act upon it. So if we don't act upon it, then what? SubhanAllah. Our enemies will overpower us. If their leaders do not rule according to the book of Allah, the rulers do not lead according to the Quran, and seek all good from that which Allah has revealed, Allah will cause them to harm one another, and Allah knows best. So, I don't want to get into politics. This is not our discussion. But the thing is what we need to look at, because many people today are saying, where are we heading? What is our present set of circumstances? What is it that we should be doing? I'm confused. We're hearing all kinds of bits and pieces of where the world is going, which direction that we should be taking. Truthfully, and it's a bitter pill for many people to swallow, there's only one direction. As you heard, there's only one direction, regardless of what people are saying or what everybody is saying. Sure, people may say, well, brother, the Muslims say that we should follow the Muslims and we should follow Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Christians say that we should follow Jesus alayhi salam. I'm a Christian, so this is the way that I'm going to follow. This is what I'm doing. And the Jews say, well, we need to follow the Torah and we need to follow what Moses alayhi salam brought. And they say that they're the most righteous and they're the chosen people, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So what are you saying? We're saying that our salvation is in obeying the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all of humanity until the day of judgment, with no exceptions. Simple. And that salvation is in what? Obeying the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way that He is prescribed, not what we want to do. Regardless of what we've been taught, regardless of what our families have been doing for generations or centuries or whatever it might be, and we've discussed this on many occasions, and there are, of course, many debates about this, and those debates will continue. But this is also not new. None of this is new. The question lies with, where do you stand? Very simply. What is your present condition? What is your relationship with your Lord? If you don't have a relationship with your Lord, then what do you have? If you don't have a relationship with Allah, what do you have? You have nothing. If you have all of the wealth of this world and you don't have a relationship with Allah, you're lost. Simple. Oh, for the Christians and Jews, okay, let's take an example. Let's take something that they know very well. The Pharaoh of Moses. He was the most powerful man in the world at his time. He lived to be several centuries old. Several centuries old. And what happened to him? Firstly, he had thousands of babies, male babies, killed to try to what? Prevent someone taking his throne. But what did Allah do? Allah put Moses in his house. To make a long story short. So Moses grew up in the house of Pharaoh to show the man who was very powerful on the earth. When the creator of that man wanted something to happen, he could do nothing. Nothing. So where does that leave us? For the people who say they believe. And let's start with the people who say they believe in Moses. Let's see, where does that leave them? Where was Moses taking his people? What was the guidance that Moses received from Allah? First and foremost, to obey and worship the one and only God. It's very important to understand that we don't separate the worship of the one and only God and the obedience to the one and only God. There are people who make that distinction. They say, oh, no. We believe in the one and only God and we worship him. We worship him. Yeah, but then comes the but. But in obedience, where are we? Where do we stand? And that is the distinction, isn't it? To bring these things together. We worship, we believe, and we are obedient. And this is where our people are failing. With all of the guidance that Allah has sent to mankind down through the ages, through his prophets and messengers, this is where we're failing today. And this is where the conflict comes, or part and parcel of it. That, well, I'm following Moses, that's it. So I am a Jew and I'm following Moses, that's it. And I know this is righteous because Moses was sent to us, alayhi salam, and we're the chosen people. Really? Okay, so what about Jesus, alayhi salam? Oh, we don't believe in Jesus, alayhi salam. This is not true story. This is fictitious. He was not true. But people said the same thing about Moses, alayhi salam. And people fail to realize that. There was a small following of Moses, alayhi salam. When he crossed the Red Sea, when he struck the Red Sea, Allah knows best, and it opened into 12 paths, and one path for each one of the tribes of Israel, there were people who froze. When they said move forward, more or less, and they moved through it, the path, there are people who froze. Those were people who were not true believers. So what happened? They died with the army of Pharaoh who tried to follow him. They drowned. So what remained was a small number of people who were believers. This is subhanAllah. You know, we need to understand this dynamic. In the same with Jesus Christ, alayhi salam. When he called the children of Israel to obey him, there were those who revolted with the intention to kill Jesus, alayhi salam. That he is false. We don't believe him. He's fictitious. Again, the same things that we hear throughout the ages of our prophets. He's not telling truth. He's a soothsayer, and so forth and so on. So there were those who set out with the intention to kill Jesus Christ. These were the Bani Israel. They were not other people. Why? Because he came to do what? Cancel out the corruption of the people in their relationship to Allah. They had become corrupted in their belief. And of course, corrupt people do not want to be obedient to Allah. They have become what? engaged and immersed in their life of whatever it is that they're doing. They enjoy this power and this mentality that they have, and they enjoy corruption. So they'll fight against this, as we see today. It is not different. So they come up with a plan to get rid of Jesus Christ. So the people say you're following Jesus Christ, you need to really look at what Jesus Christ, what he really brought, and how the people responded to the truth that he brought. And it was the same. Obey and believe in the one and only God. Worship him only. Distinctly. But this all turned upside down. So now people are confused about this. People are worshiping Jesus. People are worshiping the mother of Jesus, at least. As an example, people are worshiping the cross. People are worshiping idols of so-called Jesus, worshiping idols of his mother, using verses, let's say, in the name of his mother, praying to Jesus Christ instead of praying to the creator of Jesus Christ. So we see this distinction again. So what happened? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to the Arab nations. But for what? He wasn't Arab, but his what? His prophecy was for what? For all of mankind. Distinct. Not to the children of Israel, not to any other people, but to all of mankind. And what? To conclude man's religion. The religion that was sent to Moses alayhi salam, to Jesus alayhi salam, to conclude that. And to issue what? The Quran as the final revelation for all of the people who are in confusion. But there are people who spread the seeds of confusion today, as they have done historically, because of their desires and the influence of Satan, and to lead people astray from the correct path. So my question for our viewers is, where do you stand? And it is essential for us to get this right now. The time is running for all of us. One way or the other. The clock is running to our demise. That for sure. The clock is running until the day of judgment, which is for sure, but we don't know when. And we don't know which will come first. But at the same time, we do have time now to reflect and prepare ourselves. Reflect and correct. We need to correct ourselves today. And part and parcel of that essential is to study, to make a comparative analysis between the truths that have been brought to us. Many people believe this. The truth shall set you free. If you're a believer in this, then pursue the truth. Make a comparative analysis. Make a study for the sake of your own soul, for your future generations. Believe me, the time is running very rapidly. We're seeing that from the scholars, most of the minor signs of the day of judgment have come. When the first of the major signs come, it will go very rapidly. And we're seeing in front of our eyes so many things happening today rapidly, just as we've seen how the world has been shifted with this pandemic. And we see that they're exploiters, like wolves globally, sitting at the side like there's a gazelle in the middle, just tearing at this gazelle. And we are the gazelle, the common people, the common folk. And many of our people have become oblivious and become blinded by this. Salvation is in obeying the commandments of Allah. This is where our salvation is. We need to understand this. We need to turn to the book of Allah. If you've never read it, get a copy in your language. Sit down, spend some time, open it, read it, think, reflect. How does it relate to you? If there's a story there, read the story of Moses alayhi salam. Think about, okay, that story, it happened many centuries ago, but how does it relate to you today? There's a story of Jesus Christ when he was born. his mother, how she was before he was born, what happened after he was born. Read it. See, well, how does that relate? Well, a person says, I'm a Christian. How does that relate to the knowledge that you have? If you're a Jew, how does that relate with the story of Moses? How does it relate to what you have? When you've been commanded to over and over again to worship the one and only God, continuously throughout, you're going to hear this over and over again. Worship the one and only God only in the way that he's prescribed for you. What does that tell you if someone is telling you something different than that? If you are making excuses, if you are in denial about your belief system, you're away from that belief and you're in denial about it, in which so many people are. And I remember, I had an aunt, she was my grandfather's sister. She was 99 years old when she passed away, and she was a devout Christian. And I asked her, I said, Auntie, in your lifetime, you've seen how this has changed. The people, when you were young, they were not worshiping Jesus, right? She said, no, we're worshiping one God. I said, well, how did the people get to the point where they're saying this and they're worshiping Jesus? And you know what she told me? She says, I don't know. I don't know. And this was very painful for me to understand that people today are worshiping in a way, in a manner where they don't understand. They don't know what they're doing. They're just doing it because that's what they've been doing all of their life. This is what they've been taught to do from the time that they were children, and they don't research it. They don't look at how to be progressive in terms of what they're doing. And unfortunately, much of the world is set in this mode. And we are facing which Allah calls an avowed enemy. A very tricky enemy in Satan. Please, my dear viewers, take the time out today, not tomorrow, to search out the Quran. Sit, take some time, read it. If you don't understand that we have imams all over the world, go to one masjid, sit with them, make a list of questions that you have. Ask the imam. They will be glad to entertain you. The time is running and the time is running out. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to thank you for joining us here at Sharjah Broadcasting Authority. And alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed us again to talk about him and his greatness. And we hope that you become among those who understand this and implement it in your life for the sake of your own soul and for your true future. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.